For chapter 2, let's look at objective 2.3, which is understand how factors in the firm's external business environment influence marketing strategies and outcomes both um, domestically and in the global perspective. So when you want to consider going global, going international, what are the steps to follow recommended by international business and marketing um, experts? First, you have to look at domestic and foreign demand. What are the competitive advantages of the firm? Differences in the countries, the potential countries that you plan to go into. Then number three, determine the level of commitment you desire to make in terms of the market entry strategies available to the firm. And number four, what is specific marketing mix strategies and tactics in terms of product, place, distribution, promotion, the four P's of marketing, what specific strategies you plan to launch in those markets. So we need to consider not just the countries abroad that you are looking as a potential move, but also the conditions of the country you currently operate. And in order to do this assessment, marketers have to look at economic factors, technological factors, also those in the political and legal sphere, sociocultural trends, and the competitive outlook, of course. In this figure 2.3, which is in your textbook, you can look in more detail there in case you cannot clearly read the different variables shown in each of these boxes. What we see here is an illustration of how these forces, these different variables, impact the decisions here at the center of the illustration, the decisions in the domestic market regarding what consumers to target, which specific decisions about product, price, distribution, and promotion, the four P's, and looking outside, looking to the international um, opportunities, whether there are markets to serve out there, whether there is a possibility of committing your resources to achieve those goals, and how these particular marketing strategies would have to be adapted or not to the consumers in those places. The economic environment factors, I think, especially those of you students of economics who are in economics and finance majors, you know gross domestic product as an indicator the of the growth of the economy is one of the principal variables, is one of the main variables and indicators to look at. What are the exchange rates of your currency in exchange? In this case, let's assume of the United States dollar versus other currencies, the euro, or the yuan in China, or the peso in Mexico, the Canadian dollar. So is this exchange rate convenient for these internationalization plans? What is the economic infrastructure, the financial and banking system of countries, the standards of living of the people there? Because if you are going to sell, for example, Rolex watches which are high price, high end premium brands for which certain socioeconomic level of consumers you would target and go after, then you have to pay attention to the level of development of countries and what is their purchasing power. Here in the United States, you can see differences in purchasing power even within the country in terms of regional differences. If you see this link here at the bottom of the slide, um, let's go to this report from a few months ago. And I don't know if you will be able to see and distinguish the list of metropolitan areas that are shown here, but if you cannot distinguish them because of the resolution of the screen, you can consult this on your own later. This link is provided in your PowerPoint slide files on Blackboard. Here what we see is a list of metro areas comparing average salary on the right hand side, comparing that to the average salary adjusted for cost of living. So you have a nominal salary on the right hand side. For example, this first metro area in the list is Birmingham, Hoover, Alabama, and it says an average salary of $76,000 approximately. Well, that is like if you were making $86,000 on this column, $86,000 considering an adjusted salary for cost of living. So you can buy more relative to other regions of the United States with a salary at this level in this country, in this metro area. You have some other cities here from Texas, like El Paso, number 5, McAllen, Edinburgh, Mission, the Rio Grande Valley, number 14, where someone who makes $70,000 because of the low cost of living, it's like if they make 82,000. If we go further down the list, we see the opposite side of the spectrum. We have metro areas for which the cost of living is expensive. So for example, here in Honolulu, in Hawaii, someone who makes $74,000 a year, because of the higher cost of living relative to the rest of the United States, the purchasing power they have is as if they make $59,000. So they actually make $74,000, but what they can buy with that salary in that region is a little bit less than $60,000. So just in the same way that we can see differences in purchasing power within the United States, we can identify differences in purchasing power among countries. Another question to ask is what stage of the business cycle the country you are considering going to is at. Is it at a crisis, at an economic and financial crisis? Is it recovering? Or is it in a prosperity stage? In the United States, for example, right now it appears that we are moving from a recovery stage from the 2008-2009 recession to a prosperity stage. How long it would last? Well, we don't know, but of course the conditions of economic business cycle in the United States is different to the way it was some years ago. So that changes the criteria that companies and corporations take into account for their internationalization strategies. We have to look also at inflation rates, unemployment levels, because if you think that you can sell at a certain price in a country for where there is inflation very unstable, that inflation goes up, then you will have to be adjusting continuously your prices, the prices at which you sell your products and services. So in terms of financial planning and projections, well, you cannot do long-term projections in the same way you could do when you have more stable inflation rates, right? Um, have to look at unemployment levels. And of course, what marketers and decision makers in a business should do is look at hard data, look at the facts, look at the um, economic indicators that are produced, again, internationally or domestically. If we are thinking about expanding operations in the United States to another geographical area, well, you can look at economic reports. Here in the Corpus Christi area, in the Coastal Bend area, for example, the South Texas Economic Development Center, which is affiliated to the College of Business, periodically generates reports, and I'm jumping here to the website of the Economic Development Center. You can see the reports they generate about important indicators, overall conditions of the business cycle, which we just talked about, employment, uh, job growth, wages, sales. So if there is a company considering coming to the Coastal Bend area here, they would of course benefit from making their decisions based on information like this. Another critical aspect to look at is how technological innovations affect your business, your sector. There are some specific business sectors for which technology is more critical than other businesses. So you have to look into that. If you are in a pharmaceutical sector, in biotechnology, oil and energy, these are industries for which their competitive advantage, the strength of the firms and the companies is heavily dependent on technology and innovation, on the patents that your company has, on the equipment, the machinery, the IT that you have as part of your resources. At the bottom of this slide, you see this link to an to an article from a few months ago that talks about how something and you see every day, how retailers, brick and mortar stores are closing because the disruptive effects of internet and online shopping. Customers are buying more and more online versus physically going to a shopping mall, and many stores are closing. I just heard about this closure of Toys R Us establishments. So Toys R Us, which until a few years ago was very well positioned and is still positioned in consumers' mind as the store for buying toys for your children, but it is closing um, several of their stores because, in part, because of technology. Um, there may be other factors from their financial standpoint decisions that probably uh, is resulting in this. Political and legal environment is another area that you want to look at before deciding to go abroad. There are different rules, codes, regulations to comply with, and against certain industries have to observe more carefully or are subject to more regulation than others. If you, for example, are in the tobacco industry, well, you have to pay more taxes. You have to control and have restrictions on who you sell to, on the advertising, etc. There are a number of pieces of legislation relevant to marketers. Some are more relevant than others. I'm not going one by one. You have this table 2.3 in your textbook, so please review this on your own. But some of these have clear, direct implications with the practices of marketing, like the one we see circled now in blue on this screen, the Wheeler-Lee Amendment to the Federal Trade Commission Act in 1938, which deals with the deceptive and misleading advertising practices. Sometimes marketers, we do not get too involved with this because we leave that for lawyers, or if we have commissioned an advertising agency to do the media production of a commercial or the advertising campaign, they are the ones that have more expertise in these matters and they provide recommendations. But it's always good to be aware of these different regulations. We have certain requirements in complying with the way we reach out and communicate with our target audiences, telemarketing, for example. There are also a number of agencies which are the ones that are in charge of enforcing these laws, these codes, consumer protection related, Food and Drug Administration, which is clearly for a wide sector of the economy, which is food and drugs, critical to to pay attention to. In terms of considering going international, we need to look at the way in which certain countries are more prone or less prone to do business with foreign firms. Sometimes you have governments and political regimes that are more friendly or have affinity to free trade and welcome foreign investment. Sometimes you have changes in the political regimes and the policy orientations, and you can face challenges like some US companies have have encountered in places like Venezuela, for example, where the government proceeded with nationalization or expropriation of foreign-owned assets. So again, this is about planning ahead of time and carefully analyzing what steps to do before launching a new venture abroad. Of course, as marketers, we have to look at sociocultural environment because these are related to the consumers, to the way our consumers, our potential customers perceive our products. What are the demographics? What are the cultural values, the social norms in that market? So we are talking here about the characteristics of the people. For example, as we see on this slide, uh, something so simple, or we see here in the US as non-problematic as Barbie dolls. These dolls that are professional role models for girls. If you think about marketing these dolls in a country like Saudi Arabia or other Middle East country, well, you will more than likely have to change the way these are marketed, the product itself. I mean, this type of dolls will not be uh, portrayed in the same way. It is important to look at the competitive environment at two levels, at the microenvironment and at the macroenvironment level. The first one refers to how consumers make decisions in relation to other products and brands that are direct competitors of your product. But you have also looked at the bigger picture. What is the whole structure of the industry? So you don't look individually at specific brands and you don't analyze necessarily at the brand or product level, but you look as a whole. Is this sector that you're going into abroad controlled by one or few major players? For example, in Mexico, in the energy sector, until recently, you only had one state-owned company that had predominance of the market of energy, and now you have competition, and now you have foreign firms that are allowed to compete in that energy sector. However, this is something that just happened and it's gonna take a while for this to be more diverse, to be more dynamic. But this represents an opportunity that some businesses are in the capability of going in and compete and profit from it. There are other sectors for which there is no this situation. You have a competitive macro environment. For example, fast food sectors, fast food industry, you have not one major player or the predominance of one or two major players, but you have more competition. And now let's go to the next part, which is what strategy to implement in terms of market entry strategies. You have table 2.5 in your textbook. And here in this table, what we see is on the left hand side, low level of risk strategy, low level of control strategy, such as exporting. And then as we move to the right hand side, we have an increasing level of complexity, of risk, and of control, going through contractual agreements, strategic alliances, and all the way to the right, direct investment. Some have advantages and disadvantages that the others don't have. So most of the times, the first step, or the most convenient for some companies that do not want to risk much by going into new markets abroad, is simply by exporting your product. You produce here in the United States, for example, you have your manufacturing plants here. And if you want to target European markets or South American markets, you say, I'm going to export to other distributors and resellers there. So I just sell them the merchandise, my products or service, and they're the ones who resell it. Of course, you don't have much control of that because you are relying on other partners, on other business intermediaries. You don't get as much of the benefit because you have to share the commission, you have to share the the profit. But that's a good starting point. If your resources, if your capabilities do not yield the opportunity to go in a more aggressive strategy. Sometimes, depending of the specific sector you are in, sometimes you want to do a contractual agreement such as licensing. Rather than exporting your product, you let other businesses in those markets abroad, you let those businesses manufacture the product for you. For instance, Coca-Cola, which is based here in the United States, in Atlanta, Georgia, Coca-Cola is all over the world, but their soft drinks and products, they are not produced here in the United States. So you have bottling companies that are producing these products in Latin America, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, under a license agreement. So they have the right, the permission, the recipe, the ingredients to use the brand and market the product. And of course, this is a way of doing business which is different to simply exporting. Here you have more commitment from both parties. You share risks and you share the benefits. Sometimes in hospitality businesses, hotels, restaurants, what you see is franchising. So it's a sort of licensing model in which the business, the partner business, the franchisee obtains the right to adopt the way of doing business, the service standards, the training, the customer service, etc. So we see this a lot of in hospitality businesses. In some other cases, the companies want to launch strategic alliances, joint ventures, in which usually you have two large corporations. This usually occurs at the corporate level, not much with small or medium-sized firms. And the purpose is um, to unite resources to go together and create synergies, economies of scales that will allow the two companies together do more than if they could uh, operate independently. We have some examples of strategic alliances and joint ventures here in this slide that you are looking at. Sometimes these joint ventures involves a shared ownership of the firm, so it can also be related to mergings and acquisitions of of firms. And the the most committed type of market entry strategy is that of direct investment. A company may say, I don't want to export my products abroad. I don't want to do an alliance or joint venture or establish a contract, an agreement with another partner. I want to do all on my own. I want to go to Colombia and open a factory there and and hire my employees and my staff and do all on my own. And that, of course, represents a higher risk, but of course it represents more control, full control, and the benefits obtained are, of course, for the company without having to share it with other participants. And I've been talking now about how companies from the United States go international, go to other countries to do business, but this happens also the other way around. Companies, corporations from other countries, like you see here, Toyota from Japan, following some of these market entry strategies for coming to the United States. Then another decision to make once that the organization, once that the firm decides to go into a particular country after having analyzed and assessed the different factors that we talk about, the decision is to standardize or to localize. Standardization versus localization. Should your products be marketed, designed, distributed, priced in a similar way to how it is done in the markets you are already at? Or should you adjust and modify to accommodate the specific taste, the specific requirements of consumers in that location? Well, this depends on a number of factors. It depends, for instance, on what product category you are at, what product category you are marketing. If you are, for example, in the business of electronics and computers, like IBM, for example, well, maybe you will not have to do a lot of adaptation to other countries. The product, the computer, the laptop, or some other component will be the same in different international markets, except for some minor changes, the language and some translation that you have to do of the instructions and the packaging, this and that, some pricing. But the product itself is the same computer that you use here in Canada and in Mexico. But for some other product categories, you have to do a profound, you have to do a large um, localization to adjust it to the local tastes. And these changes can be in the product component of the marketing mix. Remember, when we talk about marketing mix, we talk about product, uh, price, distribution or place, and promotion. So is a product one that you can just sell in the same way abroad without much changes? Do you have to uh, adjust and adapt to other consumers? What is the way that you will promote it? Who are, for example, the celebrities that you will use? And again, this goes back to culture. This goes back to the difference in values, in traditions. So how you communicate with a specific audience will be depending on these cultural factors that we talked earlier. What about the prices? What about the distribution channels? Here on this picture, here in this slide, you see a 12 pack of Bud Light, which is sold for 109 pesos, Mexican pesos. So how much is this in dollars? Well, this is less than $7. It's actually like $6 for a 12 pack of Bud Light. You don't have that price here in the US. So Bud Light is the same beer that you purchase here in Stripes, in HEB, but in Mexico they have to sell it at a different price. It's the same product, but different price. And something similar you have to do about distribution. How will you distribute your products, for instance, in India, where Amazon is operating? Well, I'm sure the shipment of products to consumers, the shipping of products consumers buy, it will be done in a different way as here in the US, where you rely more on efficient postal services. The USPS services is good, is sufficient for doing distribution of commercial products, but not necessarily in other countries. Other countries don't have the same the same quality and efficiency of postal service. And finally, the last part of chapter 2 has to do with ethical issues of marketing. There is a clear trend of consumers to be more conscious about the impacts of their consumption, whether they are buying products that are environmentally friendly, whether the products are safe, that the manufacturing or production of these goods are not in conditions of labor exploitation, right? When you buy products manufactured abroad, well, every day we have consumers that are more concerned about avoiding buying products for which the companies use child labor, right? In these sweatshops that you had, for example, Nike products, boycotts of consumers because Well, we learned that many of the factories in Southeast Asia were were using children who were exploited. So these are things that we are more concerned as compared to how consumers um, care about these some years ago. Well, it's a radical change. Now we have certifications like what you see on your screen, fair trade certification, so that you know that if you are buying agricultural products, for example, you can have a guarantee that the producers, the farmers of those agricultural products were paid reasonably well, and were not being exploited by companies who purchase their products. And again, the ethics and integrity concerns and demands for ethical behavior in business has increased. The American Marketing Association's Code of Ethics establishes ethical norms and values that promote these practices, which again, some years ago, this was something you simply wouldn't think about because it was not in the discussion. But now these things are here to stay, and you as professionals of marketing will have to, of course, observe these concerns by the marketplace. Let's finish here this chapter 2.